Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We are talking about Star Wars games that ended too soon, that deserved better, that should have gotten a little bit more, and wouldn't it be nice if they did? I want to hear some of your predictions for games from history that should have made this list. Let me know down in the comments section below. At the end of this video, we are also going to be doing a giveaway for the 12 Days of Life Day. Today's winner is going to be winning the Star Wars Armada 2020 promo, the Tycho Celchu A-Wing pilot. Foil on the backside. Look at that fanciness. It's a pretty good one. So stick around for that. If you want to have a chance to enter to win any of my giveaways, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. And plus there's other things if you're interested in going a little further and you want to join our Discord or Patreon and take advantage to all the benefits that come with that. There's also links for that in the video description below. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some games that sort of deserved just a little bit better. Let's start off with Star Wars the card game. This is one that the first one that I saw that got discontinued by Fantasy Flight Games. This is a game that I think a lot of fans wanted a little bit more from, and this one came as a sort of abrupt surprise. There was a final set released after they announced the end for the Star Wars the LCG. Although while this one did pass away, it did give rise for new opportunities for card games. Ultimately, I think helping pave the way for Star Wars Unlimited, but I think a lot of fans liked the LCG format. This game was very popular, and also this game was sort of responsible for getting a lot of the artwork in. It's definitely one of the games that brought a lot of the artwork in that eventually made its way into lots of other games. A lot of the art that ended up, showing up in XWing, Armada, Legion. A lot of these games got their art first from the Star Wars card game, and a little bit from Edge of the Empire and the other Star Wars RPGs that Fantasy Flight had once upon a time. Moving forward, I'm going actually way back. We're going forward in the list, but we're going way back in time to the days of Decipher with the Star Wars customizable card game. This one was this was in the 90s. I was in high school when this one came out, and this was kind of like the Star Wars answer for Magic the Gathering. And this game was cool. It was a little clunky with how it played. You had to lay down systems and then sites within those systems, and you built this kind of really big game board with your cards. But it was such a cool game to collect as well as to play. I played this one, but I would say I collected this one more than I played it. I remember after kind of joining the army and getting out of the scene of card games for a while. It wasn't until many years later I came back and found out that this game had totally been shut down. They had gone through different revisions and editions, and eventually Decipher kind of went away between. They had done this. They had other games. They had the Star Trek game as well. All of that kind of went away, and it was interesting. I wonder how people would do if they ever did bring like the old Decipher card games back, especially with all of the new stuff that's out today. And I think a lot of the games that are on this list didn't get to really take advantage of a lot of the new media that exists and a lot of the new timelines. We have things like the High Republic and the Mandalorian and a lot of stuff like that never really got to make their way into a lot of these games that we're going to be talking about on this list. So Decipher's Star Wars customizable card game, super cool one. I remember being there at the very beginning, on launch day and getting my black bordered cards from that introductory set, and it was a fun time. It was super groovy. Playing and collecting this with all the different sets that they had coming out. Let's talk about Star Wars Imperial Assault. One of the greatest games ever, honestly. Objectively, even though it may not have been one of my favorite of all time, I have to objectively say that this was probably one of the best games that Fantasy Flight has ever done. This is not just in terms of fun factor, but also in terms of value in the core set. Again, this core set launched at $100. It wasn't a cheap core set, but man, you got so much in here. You had like a lot of stuff for both factions. The Empire had a ton of stuff. The Rebels had a ton of stuff. You also had a lot of tokens that were playable that you could use even if you didn't have all the miniatures in there, that kept your costs down a little bit because you had a lot of extra tokens that you could use. And then you could upgrade them to miniatures with the optional expansions. But you also had a campaign. And on top of the campaign, you also had a skirmish game. You had 2 game systems in one here. This was incredible, and this was massively popular. There were a lot of complications with Imperial Assault that led to this one being not as completely discontinued as everything else. This is one of the games that you will still find this on store shelves. This game is, I believe, still in print. Just nothing new. And that largely was due to legal and contractual complications. Hasbro had the license for Star Wars board games, and this one, while it was like, it had miniatures, it was still kind of a board game. It was kind of in the board game category, and so it was like tiptoeing into Hasbro's kind of domain. The whole exclusivity of licensing is always just been a problem for the consumer. Ever since EA was like the only ones that could make Star Wars video games for so long, and just trying to say that like nobody can make Star Wars games except for this company or that company, it really hurts. And because the board game was exclusive to Hasbro for so long, it led to Imperial Assault kind of ending way too soon. There were things that were started that were never finished. There were core characters that still never made their way into this. We still never got a Yoda, for example. So, like there was a lot. Now, granted, there's, a lot of these games have community initiatives that keep them going, and that's great. But those typically have sort of limited impact and limited reach, and it's not the same as when something is fully supported and organized by the manufacturer, and you get new things that are coming out, and you get that hype. And when a game is in active development, especially an expandable game is in active development, it's a very exciting time. People are showing up for casual play days. Imperial Assault and just needed a little bit more, although it did get an awful lot. And it has a lot of content. So if you are still on the fence on like, should I check this game out? Absolutely. It's still a whole lot of gameplay here. And it's super cool. Super cool stuff. Going back even further than Imperial Assault, going back to Wizards of the Coast, Star Wars miniatures. This was like a multi-part line. There was the ground miniatures game. There's also a Starship Battles kind of separate version that was not necessarily backwards compatible. But like Wizards of the Coast had a long run of Star Wars miniatures games, and they all kind of came to an end. This all came to an end also like in 2010 before we got all of the new stuff from the Disney purchase of Lucasfilm and all of that. So like everything under the Wizards of the Coast still had all of the EU and all of that stuff kind of was canonical at the time. So like a whole different universe of Star Wars, right? A whole different reality of Star Wars at the time. Also, they were the only ones that did an AT-AT properly. Like you could actually have a Battle of Hoth. And granted, I still want to see a game really do the Battle of Hoth and make it affordable and reasonable to have 5 AT-AT walkers on the board. I think in the X-Wing scale would have probably been perfect for that, which we will talk about in a little bit. But yeah, the Wizards of the Coast had a whole lot of stuff that just didn't quite endure past all of the new content that we would have had today. And wouldn't they have done an awful lot with, from Rogue One to Star Wars Rebels to The Mandalorian to nowadays, there's so much. So would have been interesting. Star Wars Destiny. We can't talk about famously discontinued Star Wars games without mentioning Star Wars Destiny, probably the most famous and most egregious of Star Wars cancellations under Fantasy Flight Games. This game was just getting started. I mean, people had bought in heavily into this game. They had come up with like draft cubes, and there was a bright future ahead for this game. But this game kind of died twice, in my opinion. It launched very rough. The launch for this game was so rough, and it's always hard to launch a card game like this when you're going to have boosters. And if you make too little of it, you have the problem that Destiny had, where people couldn't get anything. I remember on launch day, I got a starter, and I was limited to 2 booster packs. Couldn't even get a box. Limited to 2 booster packs. And that was a feels bad. It was a really feels bad when everybody around you is playing this game and you can't get any. And you want to be involved, you want to be part of the hype train, and you're just denied, And then, when you want to buy boxes, you want to go through them. You want to pop some packs, you want to, go through everything and sort and get all your stuff going. And then there were dice printing problems. That was a real big part of the problem here, was with printing those dice. It was an innovative idea. We're gonna have cards and dice. We're gonna play the card. You're gonna roll out the die that goes to the card, and this is gonna be and it was a cool system. Did get a little cumbersome once your collection grew really hard, and you had to all right, I'm building a deck. I not only have to find that card, I now have to dig through this giant bucket of dice trying to find that Mace Windu or whatever. That was not fun. It was not fun. So if I was still playing Destiny today and I had 47 expansions worth of dice, I would have just given up. I would have thrown in the towel by now. But this game was still really getting started when FFG canceled it. There was still some content that came out after the announcement of its end, but this one died way too soon, and people were furious, especially people who already played the Star Wars LCG by Fantasy Flight, that had already seen one Star Wars card game get canceled, and then another Star Wars card game, now that they've decided to get into this, has now been canceled. A lot of people were very, very spurned by this, and that led to a lot of people having some trepidation on getting into Star Wars Unlimited, which is doing really well right now, but does have a lot of people curious of how long it's going to endure, although it is doing really, really great. So I think it's going to, I think they finally got it right. Third time's the charm with Star Wars Unlimited. So Star Wars Unlimited is not on this list, by the way. X-Wing. I never thought X-Wing would be on a list like this, but X-Wing, dead in the water way too soon. Well, I won't say way too soon, but X-Wing dead in the water sooner than expected. There were reprints that never, that were announced that never got made. Huge ships are currently illegal, but still, are on store shelves. It's the most bizarre thing. If X-Wing had come to an end under Fantasy Flight, I think we could have they would have sent it out properly. They would have done like a final wave, and send done. They would have done good by X-Wing. They would have sent it off, into the sunset nobly, and about as good as they could do. But what made it so weird is shifting X-Wing over to Atomic Mass Games. Atomic Mass Games flipping this game upside down, completely rewriting the rules, changing the fundamental points, list building, the feel of the game, changing it from a dogfight to an area control skirmish, area control objective-based game. I guess there does still exist a dogfight map in there, although it's a dogfight that has to happen in the exact center of the board. So it's very, and some people do enjoy the objectives that AMG has introduced, and if you do, then nothing wrong there. But it's a massive change that AMG started and never finished, because they also outlawed effectively a lot of X-Wing. They made huge ships not have points, not have rules, and be completely illegal. And it's something that they would work on eventually, and leaving it to kind of homebrew solutions to come up with a way to run huge ships. They also effectively got rid of all generic ships, kind of point costing them out of even reasonable viability. Unless you're just completely stubborn, like I will sometimes be when I have played X-Wing since their changes, which has been seldom. There's just no reason to ever run a generic. They've made generics more expensive than the named pilots and worse. So there's objectively no reason at all to ever run generics. They've completely gotten rid of them. And just changed the rules in so many ways. Drastic changes and insulting the player base in the process. And then unceremoniously just canceling the game with a tweet. just the most bizarre and abrupt and frankly inappropriate shutting down of a game I have ever seen. AMG, your colossal mishandling of this game is just staggering. Unbelievable. Star Wars Rebellion. Now you might be thinking, why is Star Wars Rebellion on this list? Rebellion's a great game. I agree. It's my favorite 2-player game of all time. I love playing Star Wars Rebellion. One of the greatest board games ever made. It had an expansion. It's just kind of getting going. It had room for a little bit more. We never got Grand Admiral Thrawn in this game that really should have seen a little bit more. This game is in such need of a little bit more, and because it's under FFG, and because Asmodee has a lot of debt, I would stake my reputation on, for the foreseeable future, us never getting anything else for Star Wars Rebellion. Board games do fine under some contexts. Certain games are more tried and true, like Ticket to Ride does really well, but nothing compares to the amount of money they're making off of Star Wars Unlimited right now. Nothing comes even remotely close. A game that has only cards is going to have a profit margin astronomical. For Rebellion to make as much compared to the time and effort that it would for them to make another expansion or a second edition of Rebellion, they'd have to charge $1,000 for the core set, and they're not going to ever do that. So I realistically don't see them doing something like Rebellion 2.0 unless of course it shifts to a different studio that isn't working on Star Wars Unlimited. I would love so much for Rebellion to get just a little bit more. Granted, it doesn't have to. It's still great, but there's just so many things that really deserve to be in this amazing game space. Again, brilliant, masterful game here. How come we don't have a Clone Wars version of it? How come we don't have a Grand Admiral Thrawn version of it? Like, how come he's not? How come we don't have Star Wars Rebels in this game? We got a little bit of Rogue One content. They were starting to do stuff. There's so much more content now. There's more ships. There's more ground things. There's all kinds of strategy and tactics that could be. And frankly, as people have played this game, there's little imperfections, little things that are kind of like, you know what, you never want to play that card. That card is always bad. That card needs there's a lot of little changes and tweaks that could really benefit from a second edition. So I'd love to see either an expansion or a new edition or a Clone Wars version done for Star Wars Rebellion. And sadly, I don't think it's in the cards with the way things are right now. Who knows? 10 years from now, maybe things will change. But really, really great game. It's a shame it didn't get any more. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Star Wars Armada. Another victim of the AMG acquisition of Fantasy Flight Miniatures games. Armada never had a chance when the day that AMG got it. It was already one of those games that was going to slowly but surely get at least one or two more waves of Clone Wars stuff. There was definitely a plan. There was more that was planned. There was more that was planned for X-Wing also. They were going to do ground combat with X-Wing. Did you guys know that they're going to do ground stuff for X-Wing? It was on the drawing board. They were going to have an optional, just how they have epic formats for stuff. There was going to be ground stuff possible for X-Wing. It was going to be amazing. Armada had a lot more Clone Wars stuff, at least some more Clone Wars stuff planned, as evidenced by the art that exists throughout the Clone Wars core sets, the ETA 2s, the obvious lack of cards that reference things that don't exist yet, that were never to come, the unfinished nature of the Clone Wars. It was just getting started, and AMG said absolutely not. At best, we'll throw the dog a bone by releasing a PDF, and that got us by, and the community has endured. But boy, oh boy, if a game ever needed just one solid wave or two to really feel like a complete game, Armada was so close, and the drastic imbalance of the established Rebel and Imperial factions compared to the Clone Wars that just got their first wave after the core set. So they have 4 ships each, and that's it. When AMG takes over and AMG says, we'll never make any actual ships for this game. It's crazy to me. But yeah, that's the way it goes. Again, when you're completely profits driven, you're not gonna try and spend the money to get something pre-painted. Even if you still make money, you just want to make money off of what you can, and it's a shame that that this couldn't go to a different studio that would have actually loved to have had such a world-class game. It's a real shame what happened, but at least the rules weren't turned upside down, like I said in a recent video. At least AMG never actually, decided to completely, take a shotgun to this game and say, hey, let's just change it into an area control game where you're just babysitting objectives and not shooting at each other. Who knows what they could have done. I'm glad they didn't, but at the same time, I'm not glad that it was ripped away from Fantasy Flight, who had plans for it. And, the timing couldn't possibly have been worse. It was just bonkers how this game died, at the worst possible time. I say died, I just mean, ceased development. It's still being played. I play once a month, sometimes more than that. I still play this regularly, and it's still probably my favorite miniatures game of all time, and will probably remain that way for the foreseeable future. But those are some Star Wars games that I think deserved better. I want to hear what you think. Now, I didn't include any of the RPGs on this list, even though between the West End games, Star Wars RPG, and the Edge of the Empire / all the Fantasy Flight, which is now Edge Studios Star Wars RPG games, I feel like those games, we kind of create the content for them, so I don't know if they really need the same level of continued expansions and stuff like that. Granted, some new books might be cool once in a while, especially as we get new things, but they're so open-ended that I think they've given us all we really need, but maybe you disagree. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments section below. We have a winner to announce today, and that is going to be for the foil Tycho Selchu Star Wars Armada 2020 promo, and that winner is Captain Malheur. Congratulations, Captain Malheur. All you got to do is shoot me an email over at mailcrabbok@gmail.com and let me know what you've won, and I'll get your contact information. We'll get you squared away. And anybody who did not win any of the 12 Days of Life Day stuff, don't worry. Anything that goes unclaimed for 30 days passes, we're going to be redistributing those giveaways, the unclaimed winnings, over onto Patreon, so patrons have additional opportunities to win. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and having opportunities to win some unclaimed gifts, and we also do other giveaways and other interesting things over on Patreon, you can, at higher tiers, you can get your name in the credits and Discord roles and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out in the links are all in the video description below. You can jump on our Discord, keep the discussion going there, and I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. The spice must flow. You can't take the sky from me. And always wash your socks.